is the hiring of Frank Reich, and it's not about Frank Reich so much, is the fact that Steve Wilkes doesn't get another chance, and the amount of African-American head coaches that don't get second chances, it's alarming. Now, who got I don't have the list in front of me. Jim Caldwell obviously got a second chance. Lovie Smith got a second chance, but it didn't amount for much. 1 year.
One and done, yeah.
Right.
He did step away from the NFL and was a head coach in college.
Yes.
Ray Rhodes didn't get a second chance. Leslie
Frazier has not got a second chance.
Has not. And my personal opinion on him is I believe he's meant to be a coordinator, not a head coach. That's just my opinion of him. It has nothing to do with, Brian Flores, he deserves a second chance.
Yeah. Ray Rhodes was one of the all-time great coaches. He was Marty Schottenheimer's offensive coordinator when he was in Washington, and defense coordinator, sorry. Absolutely loved him.
Actually, Ray Rhodes did get a second chance. He was head coach of Green Bay 1 year after his Philly days. But he only got 1 year in Green Bay.
Yeah. And that's the thing. When you see a guy take over and there was a lack of success, and then all of a sudden he takes over and then there is some success, you're wondering, okay, why is that guy not hired?
Mm-hmm. Right.
I mean, I guess you could say with Reich, he's supposedly a good QB guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is a sign that they're moving up in the draft.
Okay,
maybe.
Yeah. I mean, you can look at all those signs, sure.
But that's
you
not.
You heard what I said.
Right,
I'm making his case instead of Wilkes.
Right.
Which is
That's not enough to make him the head coach, though.
Yeah. And so the other question that you raised is the Rooney Rule has become a joke. How do you make it better? I think that's the big question.
Right.
Is it simply there needs to be a turnover in ownership?
Yeah.
I think that's the that's the biggest thing, is there needs to be a turnover in ownership.
Right. 248-539-9797. Here's some texts. I don't understand why Bieniemy hasn't gotten a head coaching gig after interviews every year. There's got to be something in that interview process. I would think. I don't know. Whatever. I don't get it. I know the narrative is it's all Andy Reid. I don't buy that it's all Andy Reid. Yes, Stoney, he does fit the criteria. Offensive-minded ex-head coach and white man. Correct, guys. And I've never seen it any more than when the Lions hired their first black head coach. The media coverage was so biased that to this day I cannot stand listening to you guys. Biased in what way? Please call and
explain.
There we go, Stoney. Race. The owners want to win. Winning equals money. The GMs want to win to keep their jobs. They will hire whoever they believe will win games. They don't give a crap what color the person is. You have no idea how the interview or if their concepts match up with the GM. Keep crying racism, Stoney. That's your default setting. No, I didn't. I said, if you listen, I said you can't prove that it's racist. You can't prove that it's biased. You can't prove that it's prejudice. But what I am saying is if you're an African-American, number one, or number two, anybody like myself, John, Tom, all white guys, you sit there and say, wait a second, something doesn't add up. Just look at it.
I'll say the one thing to that is, okay, if your philosophies don't align with the GM and even the owner at that point, be careful who you bring in as your interim coach. Yeah. Why don't you cross those boxes and check those boxes before you give somebody an opportunity? He goes out and shows that he can do a pretty good job, and it's pretty good. Nobody's saying Steve Wilkes is taking the Carolina Panthers a promised land.
Right.
But, he got a tryout, and to me, passed the test.
You got two tryouts in the NFL. One of those jobs is still out there. Would you rather have Steve Wilkes or Jeff Saturday?
Steve Wilkes.
Yes.
Again, Jeff Saturday was white. That's probably why he got a chance as a TV analyst. And you bring in Bart Scott. He does the same thing.
He was Irsay's buddy. That's the difference. All right. I love this one. I just love this one. So predictable. It's amazing to me that everyone talks about the lack of black coaches in the NFL, but no one talks about the lack of white players. Maybe it's simply because they aren't as good as the black players. And maybe the answer to why there aren't as many black coaches is because they aren't as good as the white coaches. Okay, well, there's a thing called tryouts and opportunities and things like that. And yes, there's more black players in the National Football League and the National Basketball Association. But there are plenty of black coaches in the NBA. In the NFL, it's not that. And they're not getting the chances. And why is it okay for white guys who fail to get a second chance and black guys who maybe fail don't get a second chance. Explain that to me. Now, a lot of it is true. We're not in the interview process. I understand that. It just looks bad. And if you don't think it looks bad, then you need to look in the frickin' mirror. I think it's smoke and mirrors with Eric Bieniemy. Have we ever seen him actually call plays? I think the main reason he hasn't been offered a job, as most owners know, it's Reed making the calls and Eric is a figurehead. That's from Jeff. Well, that is possible. But there are people out there who are white who've probably done less as coordinators and play callers to get jobs. And some of them have been really successful. Doug Peterson at one point was not even an offensive coordinator.
Yeah.
Andy Reid, he was never an offensive coordinator. John Harbaugh was not an offensive coordinator.
Well, and here's the thing: when players leave an
Coordinator in general.
organization, they're going to be more apt to talk about how that organization is run and their relationship with coaches. Have you ever heard a former player come from Kansas City or leave and say anything bad about Eric Bieniemy?
No.
Have you ever heard them say, the conversation around, Andy Reid is calling all the plays and, Eric Bieniemy is not? You haven't heard any of that. And that would be part of the and so when you ask what's going on in those interviews with Eric Bieniemy, and sometimes, you hear speculation that he doesn't interview well or he's abrasive. You would hear those things from players, and you don't. So that's where, again, we're not in the room. We're not in those meeting rooms. We're not in the offense. We're not on the headset calling plays, listening to who's calling plays. But you're looking at all of the indicators as to looking for why.
And we're not saying that these owners are racist. We're just saying that it certainly looks funny. After year after year after year after year, you tell me there's no good African-American candidates.
Now, to be fair here, we had an interim coach after last season that didn't get a job. And you can argue he did a better job, he did record-wise, than Steve Wilkes. It was Rich Bisaccia.
Yes.
Okay.
He took his team to the playoffs.
Yeah, they lost to the Bengals in Cincy in that first game. So
he should have got that job too. There's no doubt about that.